The space between, where the light finds the cracks. What happens when we stop demanding that the next chapter reveal itself before we are ready to live it? Hi, my name is Nancy Vellante, and I am the founder of The Whispering Soul, astrologer, and certified wellness coach. So, the space in between. I love that. I love the space in between things because to me, that's where the medicine or the transformation of the medicine, of the energy, of the consciousness really resides. And when there's a space in between, yes, there is a choice. And then when we make that choice, the space can come together. So the space between what has always been and what is becoming. The space between the ending and the beginning. The space between certainty and uncertainty. We don't talk enough about this space. It's liminal. We can't put a finger on it, right? We can feel it, we can sense it, and we can use our intuition towards it. We often rush through it. We all do. I do. I have. But during this eclipse season, I'm really trying to be aware not to do that. What we want to know what comes next. Yeah, we want to know what comes next, right? We want the answer, the direction, the sign, and the new chapter. And you know what? It's there. We have to be patient. We have to let it flow. So the post solar eclipse was in Leo. And to me, it was double energy because it was ruled by the sun and Leo was ruled by the sun. So we got that double illumination of energy from the sun, which was incredible about the heart. And now on August 28th, the lunar eclipse will be in Pisces. And I find that really interesting. And I don't know if other astrologers would agree, and that's okay if they don't. But what I'm feeling and what my intuition and soul is telling me is this lunar eclipse in Pisces is such a reflection to the post North Node in Pisces that we just transitioned out of. That was 18 months of the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. About surrendering, letting go of control, to keep it very simple. So I feel like, and now the North Node and South Node, North Node is in Aquarius, South Node is in Leo. So the post-solar eclipse in Leo was right next. It was a South Node eclipse. It truly was about releasing what we've been holding in the heart that might not be resonating with what could have been possible or is possible of what you, I, we, us experienced with the North Node in Pisces, about surrender, about being part of the mystery, allowing ourselves to let go of the shore so we can float into the unknown safely, supported, and see what the beautiful Piscean energy has to offer us, that divinity, that creativity. So I think there is a real dance between the solar, and there always is, the solar moon, the solar eclipse and lunar eclipse. It's bringing us back a little bit to illuminate, right? The full moon is about illumination. But what if the space between isn't something we are meant to rush through, right? That's a great question. And here's two more. What if it is where we listen? What if it is where we begin to discover something that couldn't reveal itself? while we were holding on tightly to what we thought we knew. And sometimes we have to in order to survive, in order to feel supported and safe. That's all okay. But now we have just moved again through the solar eclipse in Leo, and now we are moving towards the lunar eclipse in Pisces. The solar eclipse asked us to look toward the heart, to consider what happens when we have the courage to be seen, not necessarily by everyone else, but by ourselves. What is it like to see yourself? Now, that could be uncomfortable at first, right? To see the places where ego has protected us way too much and allowed us to not move, but to be numb. The places where fear has made decisions for us, and that's always not the best place to make a decision from. But we've done it, and fear does play a purpose in our lives, but it's being conscious of it, reflecting upon it, transforming it. The places where we have confused being strong and being closed. And I really have been and still I still am thinking about that. To me, that's really important. Where have we thought we were strong, but we were actually closed? Wow. And the body will tell you through tension, through contraction, through illness, through the ability not to feel. The communication, the body language. I feel the deeper invitation was to release something that no longer needed to define us. You know, that changes as we grow. It changes as we age. It changes as we become more conscious, mindful. Not because we failed, but because we have grown. And growth doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes growth looks like a quiet decision. Sometimes it looks like forgiveness. First and foremost, forgiving yourself. Sometimes it looks like finally admitting that something hurts. That's where resilience comes in. And saying, I don't know. I just don't know. Have you ever stood in the middle of your life and realized you didn't need the entire path illuminated to the next step? Well, being a Sagittarius rising, I always want the path to be illuminated. And you know what? That's overwhelming. It's way too much energy. And you tend to miss things when it's almost too bright. You know what I mean? So it's like it's in bits and pieces, or it's in chunks, however it comes. But doing the whole ball of wax, sometimes it's too much for the nervous system. So I do believe this is the space in between, what we've just talked about. It's not linear. I don't believe our becoming is linear. It's more like a zigzag, right? Like those beautiful mountains, all zigzagged, and one's taller and shorter than the other, and one's more intense to climb, the other maybe is easy. We move forward, then sideways. We revisit something we thought we had healed. That's always a knee-jerker. Oh my God, I thought I healed that. It's happened to me so many times, but it is a spiral. And we go through it to see where our consciousness is. How much more consciousness can we bring in to the mind, body, and soul? We find ourselves standing in an old doorway with a completely different understanding of who we are. We think we have gone backwards, only to discover we are seeing something from a deeper place. It's never really backwards. The thing that reminds me of not even backwards or forwards, if we allow ourselves to get stagnant. Like if you see a pool of water or like a river that just becomes stagnant, you can see that, you can feel that. And that's where we want to move energy. Thought, consciousness. This is where I think astrology becomes so beautiful. Not because it gives us a predetermined future, because it doesn't, but because it gives us a language for the cycles we are already living. The sun and the moon remind us that life is always moving between illumination and shadow. One doesn't cancel the other, except for solar eclipse, right? When we had that for just a few moments in time. And it's not really that it's canceled. It's just that one took over the other for a moment to bring a bigger understanding of what can happen in the universe and how it's aligned day after day, night after night. So there's some food for thought here. There are cracks in all of us, places where our self-worth has been wounded as we're experiencing Taurus retrograde in Chiron, the medicine man or woman, the wounded healer. Places where we have carried shame, places where we have been afraid to forgive ourselves, places where an old story has quietly continued to live beneath the surface. Can't get away from that one. Let's think about what happens in nature for a moment. I love that connection. A seed doesn't wait for perfect conditions to grow. Sometimes life finds its way through the smallest crack in a sidewalk. A tiny green shoot appears where we never expected it. Suddenly there is beauty where we thought there was only brokenness. We've seen that when you're walking. Oh, look at that plant or flower going through the crack in the cement. I think the soul can be like that too. There are places within us that we may have called broken that are actually becoming openings. That's a real different mindset. Openings for compassion, for creativity, openings for a different relationship with ourselves and others, and openings for love. The light doesn't always enter through the front door. Sometimes it finds a crack. Maybe that is one of the gifts of this space between eclipses. We don't have to know exactly what the light will look like yet. We can simply become willing to notice where it is already finding us. As we move toward the lunar eclipse in Pisces on August 28th, the conversation begins to soften. Pisces is water, the water of the divine, the sacred, the spiritual. We move from the courage of the heart, fire, Leo, into the deeper waters of feeling, imagination, faith, compassion, and connection. Pisces asks us to remember that not everything meaningful can be explained. Oh, that's a hard one for me. Some things are felt before they are understood, most times. Some things are imagined before they are created. Some things are known in the body long before the mind has words for them. And this is where I want to pause for a moment. And as I pause, let's take a breath. In your own time, in your own way. Because I think so much of our lives is spent trying to become certain. But what if certainty isn't always the goal? What if the goal is trust? Trust that we can meet what comes, that we can change our minds, that we can ask for support. Trust that we don't have to walk every part of the path alone. I think this is where community becomes part of the conversation with this present North Node in Aquarius, which loves community from the ground up, horizontal community, where everybody is heard, everybody matters. Diversity makes up a different kind of a wholeness that's innovative, authentic. Because the space between doesn't have to be solitary. We are all moving through our own versions of it. We may be in a space between relationships. Someone else may be between careers. Someone may be between an old identity and a new understanding of themselves. Someone may be learning to trust their body again. Someone may be discovering that the dream they thought they wanted no longer feels like that dream. It's changed. It's transformed. It's the beauty about eclipse season. And someone else may simply be sitting quietly wondering, what now? And that's a beautiful question, because you're opening yourself up not only to your universe inside, but the universe outside. That question has the potential to connect us. We don't need the same answers to share the same human experience. We can meet each other in the questions. August has carried such an extraordinary conversation about light and darkness. The sun has illuminated. The moon has moved through shadow. And Jupiter in Leo continues to expand the invitation to discover a deeper wisdom through your heart. But wisdom isn't always comfortable. Sometimes wisdom asks us to look at the places where we have been wounded, the gifts, the embodied experiences we carry from lifetime to lifetime, from now to tomorrow, from yesterday. The stories we tell ourselves about our worth. We're all worth. We all have worth. Sometimes we have to dig deep. The moments when we learn to protect ourselves are the greatest, and also can be places where we get stuck. Got to keep dancing. Got to keep moving. The places where we become smaller so that we could belong. I do believe that healing isn't about becoming someone who was never hurt. Healing is learning to hold the hurt without letting it become the whole story. That is where compassion enters. Not as an excuse, not as avoidance, but as a willingness to meet ourselves honestly. And sometimes that honesty is dramatic. Sometimes it's messy. Sometimes it looks nothing like the beautiful transformation we imagined. But there is something incredibly sacred about choosing ourselves again and again and again. That, to me, is the courage of the heart. And maybe that is what the space between is teaching us. That surrender isn't giving up. Lunar eclipse in Pisces. Surrender can be a form of participation, Wow. We release, we listen, we take a step, we pause, we receive support, we take another step from dark to light and light to dark. As a dancer, I could choreograph to those words. So can you. I have total faith. Now, let's not think of all this that I just said as opposites, because I did correlate it with choreography and movement and dance, but as part of one living rhythm. The sun and moon, giving and receiving, expansion and rest, knowing and wondering, you, me, us, they. All of us participating in this extraordinary mystery of being alive, and it is a mystery. I know some of us don't like it. We all don't like it because we're human, so we do like certainty, but we know that there always isn't, so we want to try to. It's very hard, easier said than done, to become comfortable with that rhythm. So as we move toward the lunar eclipse in Pisces, we don't need to rush toward the next beginning. Oh, it's an eclipse. There's a beginning. It doesn't work that way. Can we allow ourselves to inhabit the space between? Take a moment. It's not a race. To notice what is quietly being released. That's private maybe at times. To notice what is asking to be forgiven. To notice what wants to be imagined. To notice where creativity is beginning to move again. To notice the little pieces of hidden magic that have been waiting for our attention. Like little nuggets of gold buried deep. Can we embody the willingness to notice the purpose quietly living beneath the fear? Because purpose doesn't always arrive like a lightning bolt. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it grows through the cracks. Sometimes it emerges from the places we thought were too dark for anything beautiful to live. And sometimes the path toward wholeness begins with something very simple. One breath, one honest conversation, one moment of forgiveness, one small act of courage, one step, then another, and another, like a child learning to walk. I've watched my granddaughter learn to walk, and I'm sure I watched my children, but it's different when you're a grandma and you're watching your grandson or daughter walk for the first time. There's something very different about that. Until one day we look back and realize we were becoming all along. Not by moving in a straight line, but by learning to travel between the light and the dark. That's all we got. And perhaps that is the authentic outcome of this journey, not choosing the light over the dark, but learning that both have something to teach us so beautifully and so deep. And sometimes not deep, right? Because nature knows this day in and day out. The universe knows this. And somewhere inside us, I think the soul knows this too. The light doesn't exist without the dark. And the dark is never the whole story. There is always something growing, something becoming, something remembering, something whispering. Keep going. You are not behind. You are in the space between, and you are not walking it alone. Let's take a moment here for a soul practice. Just find yourself comfortable. You could lay down, you could sit up, you could be however you want to be. And we're going to be here for just just a minute or two. Let's start out with a breath. And I'm not going to initiate this go around where the breath is started or initiated. I just want you to breathe and find that breath in your body where there's a space in between. So let's just take an inhale. And gently exhale through your mouth. Again, without knowing, without directing, take a breath in and let that breath take you to the space in between your mind, body, and soul. We're going to do 3 more breaths just like that, with that same intention of finding the space in between, allowing the breath to find it for you. Take an inhale and exhale through your mouth. Let that settle. Trust. And I take another breath in. Exhale through your mouth. And it might change with each invitation to breathe in. Allow that to be okay. Last breath. Inhale. Exhale. Let that breath settle. Of course, it's not the last breath, but in this meditation. And let that breath settle in a space, knowing that maybe that's the space you can work with in between these eclipses. From the post-solar eclipse to the lunar eclipse, August 28th. And work with this. Just work with the breath and letting the breath guide you to the space in between your own body, mind, and soul. Take a moment to feel the outline of your body so you're here in the now. That's your container, your temple, as you feel the space in between. And here's a question. You can write, you can draw, you can walk, you can just sit in silence. But here's the question between when we receive this lunar eclipse in Pisces. What are you noticing in the space between? I leave you with that pause. Thank you for being with me today. Have a beautiful day or evening wherever you are in the world. And please remember, growth comes from the space between. Talk to you soon.